I know what you're thinking. There is an awful lot of car diagnostic equipment out there, isn't there? And I bet you found this video because you're a little bit confused. I'm going to try and help you. I've got an amazing diagnostic tool. They're fairly new on the scene. It's by a brand called Kingbolen, but they've been around for about 14 years, since 2010. And these guys are actually the sole supplier to Launch and amongst many other companies as well. In fact, there's so much information on this product that I'm actually going to have to do more videos, but I'm going to do a quick overview today. I'm going to open it, we're going to get it on the car. Today we are talking about the Kingbolen K7 Smart Scan Tool. Now this thing packs a punch. We're going to go up against the Autel Maxicom MK808. We're going to see what they're like in terms of the comparison. This thing does so much. I was going to try and remember it all and tell you, but I've had to write it down as I've been playing with it. Now I'm quite familiar with diagnostics. I do an awful lot on my channel. I've got my iCar Soft, I've got my little mini Launch Creeder there, and I've also got the Launch X431 Pro Elite, and there's going to be some other comparison videos coming up. But let me just quickly tell you, promise you we're going to get this open, I'm going to get it on the car, but have a listen to this. Kingbolen, been around since 2010. It's actually the Shenzhen King Solomon Electronics tech company. They have relationships with Launch, Autel, OBD Star and Conway. Functionality wise, just to give you an idea, you get 3-year free updates to your software on this. I've recently done a video on the smaller Ediag Kingbolen, which is a Bluetooth module that you plug in and then you use your mobile phone. That one has only got 12 months. This one you get 3 years. You also get a 5-year warranty on it. You've got your Bluetooth adapter, so you don't need a cable. Plug it into your OBD2. Wi-Fi comes with 2.4G and your 5G. You've got Android 10 with a 7-inch screen. It's got a 1.6 gigahertz processor and it's got a 3150 milliampere battery. It has a lot of long battery life on it, which is great. It's got a camera. 98% of the cars on the planet this thing covers. That's over 10,000 different types of car and over 100 different types of car brands. Unbelievable. It's got 31 reset functions. Just in comparison, the smaller one here, which is the one that you use your mobile phone, only has 15, as well as things like key matching, key learning. It's got disabling lost keys, and cars are getting stolen all the time, so to be able to disable lost keys, lovely. You can also add new keys as well. Fully bi-directional. It does your ABS, it does your BCM, it does your DPF regen cleaning, your SAS, your steering angle sensor, your BCM battery conditioning monitoring system. It does injection learning and gearbox learning as well. It's got it all. So enough talk, let's not bore you anymore. Gonna get this open, we're gonna have a play.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move on.
Oh, and there she is in all her glory. Straight away, a lovely tactile feel, nice chunky rubber surround so it could take a few impacts. Got a camera on the back. Unlike the Autel though, straight away I notice it doesn't seem to have a stand like that does. That comes in handy when you hook it on the top of the steering wheel. But small first world problems. This is the important thing. This is your Bluetooth little adapter. Unlike the Autel, that you need to use a cable. So that's nice and convenient. Plug that into the OBD2. Then you can sit there and you can have a look. Importantly, in the paperwork, you're going to have an activation code as well. So let's turn it on, let's have a play. Just looking at the hardware here, it's got a USB port, USB-C, that's your cable connection. Whoa. As I said, we're going to go up against the MK808 Autel there, Maxicom. Okay, so I'm going to go and load it all up, put my language in, probably need to update. I like the fact that it's come fully charged, that's a lovely little touch. The activation code and we are all successfully registered. I must admit, straight away, this is really responsive. It works and behaves just like a tablet. You can use it on the internet. You can see how fast it's running. It really is lovely. It is just like having a little tablet that you'd normally use in the house. It's Android 10, it's so easy to use. You swipe down to the top of the screen, you've got the typical Android functions and features. Let's just go, OBD and scan. I need to plug in my my adapter. I'm going to do that in just a second, don't you worry. This is what goes into the OBD2. But you've got things like, if I go to repair info, and then it brings up, you can go onto the internet, go onto Chrome. Look how fast it's working. I'm outside in my garage and it's picking up the Wi-Fi no problem. Let's have a little search and type in my name and it finds me, and there's my ugly mug there on my YouTube Groove On page. Lovely and quick, very nice. Let's go into my videos just to see if they play quite nicely. Let's go into this one. This is the one that I've just done recently actually on my Ediag Plus. And there we go, and there's me. One thing I've noticed is if you press the power button, you'll go back, which is nice. And then you just keep going back out, just like you would do normally on your mobile phone. If you've got an Android, you just keep pressing the back button, and eventually you'll get back to the main page. You've got an OBD fault code library where you can pop it in and find it. You can also use this and just search on the web if you wanted to. There's a USB connection mode there. That's interesting. That's toggled off at the moment, so maybe you can just plug it in with a USB. Screen recording, that's interesting. And there's your Wi-Fi. You also got options, things like floating window. You've got remote control function, remote diagnosis, so you can connect to this from away from the vehicle elsewhere. You've got a battery tester there. You've got your oscilloscope. You've got your video scope, TPMS, that's your tyre monitoring system. Again, when you plug in the Bluetooth, if you've got your TPMS, it will talk to that. So enough talk, let's get on the car, let's have a little play. Ooh, it's getting cold. Lovely little box it comes in. Let's plug it in, let's get straight into it, and let's see what she can do. So unlike other diagnostic tools that I've got, normally the cable goes to the diagnostic tool. This little beauty, this little K7 Kingbolen, just uses a Bluetooth adapter. You plug it into your OBD2, she'll talk to your diagnostic, and away she goes. And in any car, the regulations are that it needs to be at least 1 meter from where the driver sits. So it's going to be in and around that area. Sometimes you need to remove a panel. For me, it's just underneath here. Pull the little flap down, plug it in. That's it. So it's around the Bluetooth module. One of the things, just to give you a tip, when I first did it, it wasn't connecting, but you need to make sure you push it all the way into your OBD2 port. Sometimes it can be a bit stiff, and it'll make a little beep beep, and then you know that it's pushed in correctly. So make sure ignition is on the car, and then it's going to run through now and try and find out which CAN bus that your car has. But it looks like it's found something now, and it's found a match, it's found my VIN number, and we're ready to go for a scan. So already that is a lovely quick setup. Very impressed with that. So what we'll do, let's press enter and see where we go from there. Now it says select diagnostic function, I would think. So we got read live data, we got read freeze frame, read fault codes. It's certainly a different layout to what I'm normally seeing. If I compare it, say, to the launch setup, it usually has a health report, a system scan, a manual scan. And that's the same with the Kingbolen Ediag Plus, which is the one that you use with your mobile phone. And it's also the same as the Maxicom MK808, which I'm kind of comparing it to. Right, let's do a scan. So this is the screen that you're going to be familiar with and you're going to start. So go straight into scan, and it has a nice little demo function here, but I've done those before in the past. But whilst I'm in the car, let's do a real live test. Why not? So it's got options down the side of what the area of the world that you're in. So it's a European car, and it is a Mercedes. So let's scroll down to Mercedes. There we are. I can hear the Bluetooth module beeping. And now it's getting a bit more familiar. This is the sort of thing I'm used to seeing. So let's go for an automatic search. And what this is going to do is find the VIN and find the car. So the code is correct. That's my VIN number. Recognize the ending of it. Now reading mileage from ECU. So this is very similar to the Ediag, Kingbolen Ediag Plus Bluetooth module. There's something below if you want to have a look at that video. And here's my car. So it's a 2003 or 2008. Those years, I press OK, and we're going to do a health report. Now this will be interesting because normally the health reports, they can take probably 4 or 5 minutes. Let's see how fast this thing does it. Ignition is on, so don't need to have the engine on, but just have it so all the lights are on the dash. Welcome back, we have finished, and as I mentioned, it can take 5 or 6 minutes or so. It actually took 7 minutes. That is no bad point, by the way, and that's nothing to do with the diagnostic tool, because you've got to remember that there's dozens of control units on any car. This is Mercedes SL. There's going to be quite a lot compared to, say, my little Fiat. So it takes a little bit longer or shorter depending on the car that you got. Anyway, importantly, let's have a look, and straight away that I can see, yes, it does it exactly how I'm used to seeing it on other diagnostic tools such as the Maxicom and my launch, and that is it puts any issue at the top of the page and it tells you the number of faults. And I must admit, this is as clear as I've ever seen it. It's simple, it's straightforward, I know where I am. And all the ones that aren't red in the green, I can see there that they are all good. So I don't need to worry about those because there's no faults with them. So let's go into the ones with a fault and we see if we can clear them. That's a good little test. So straight away, one at the top there, engine control module. I've got 4. If I tab down on the arrow, straight away it tells me the DTC. So I've got a P20B7-008, 207F001, 2081-001 and 201002. Now, as I've always mentioned, don't get too alarmed that you might have lots of faults. I've got historic faults that I know I've got to get round to doing on this car, but I'm just busy and I haven't managed to do it. This top one here is talking about an O2 sensor. I can feel that the car is a little bit lumpy. It tells me that it's aging. I've seen that also on my Maxicom MK808. So there's nothing there which I didn't know about. And because I got a fault with the sensor, it's probably giving me other faults related to it. So one fault can give you a knock-on effect with others. So I'm not going to bother clearing it because I know it will come straight back. Let's have a look at the next one, which is the electronic stability program. It says I got one fault. Switch the ignition on, which it is. Data's been determined, and we're going to read the fault code. One thing I've noticed, this Kingbolen K7 is so much more, it's more rapid, it's more responsive. This is, the way I'm looking at this is a home hobby enthusiast diagnostic tool, but it's actually of an engineering professional standard. For the price of what this is the sort of thing that if you had a garage, you'd be getting one of these. You really would, because if it gives you those 3 years of car updates and a 5-year warranty, you can't knock that. Anti-lock brake system, I've got a fault there. Why don't we try and clear it? So let's go back. Let's go clear fault code. Are you sure you want to clear it? Yes. Switch ignition off. Okay. Press OK. Wait 10 seconds. Some cars have this 10-second wait. Other cars, such as my little Honda, when you press clear faults, it clears it straight away, and that'll just be down to the manufacturing software. Here we go, switch back on again, turn the radio off. Clear fault memory completed. She's gone. Now, what I'm hoping to see is when I go back to that list, that ABS should have dropped off, should have gone from red to green and dropped down to the list below. Let's have a look. And there we go, the ABS module has now been cleared of the fault code. And if I move down, let's have a look at the greens. We should see it down there. So there we go, electronic stability program. That's where the ABS was, and it's gone. So I don't need to worry about that. Okay, so we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 faults. I'm not going to clear the one with the oxygen sensor because I can't. Let's do the next one there. Sam, driver's side. Here I got a problem with the alarm. I know what that is. Again, I need to get around to fixing this, but inside the alarm, that's a siren for the car. There's a little battery and it's worn out. It's 20 years old, this car, and I just haven't got around to changing it. Normally you buy a new horn, but I've already taken it apart. You have to break the seal. So I'm going to buy myself, there's a video going to come up about that, by the way. So if you've got a Mercedes and you've got the fault with the horn, you can actually just change the battery and get around that problem. So that's on the to-do list. So I can't clear that one. Let's do the next one. Passenger side signal acquisition and actuation module. It says I've got 2 faults there. And I have right, standard and parking lamp. Well, I got the LEDs in the front. Sometimes they flicker and it causes that fault. But nevertheless, we can still clear it. And what's the next one? The component of the signal line to the component M3 heating water circulation pump. So in terms of navigation, there's 2 things you need to remember. You press the down arrow if there's, for example, 2 faults. But if you want to go into the next set of things that you can do in that control unit, then you press the little arrow to the right. Make sure that you follow the information that it says on the screen, that the ignition is on. And then it gives you this list here of all these different things. And you've got that on all the different control units. Some will have a little bit less, some will have a little bit more. So let's have a quick look and you can have an understanding of what these actually mean. So the module information is going to tell me about the make, it's going to tell me about the part numbers, year of manufacture. And here we go. So the control unit part number, Mercedes-Benz part number, and that's lovely. So if you've got a control unit that's, for example, buried under the back somewhere, I know for example I've got an audio gateway, and to get to it, it can take about half an hour. You've got to remove panels and it's a little bit of a ball ache. If you plug in your K7 by Kingbolen, you can find the part number. You then can go and search and find that replacement parts. Right, fault code, let's have a look at that one. And we got the parking lamp on the front, and we got the component, the signal line to the component M3 heating, which is the heating water circulation pump, as a short circuit or positive or overload. Right, so let's go back and let's clear that fault code. Yes. Switch off ignition. Okay. Ignition is off. Wait 10 seconds. Switch back on again. It's back on again. Press OK. And it says it's cleared. So another thing you can do, if you've got a number of faults, and rather than me going into them individually, you've got a clear DTC's button there. It's kind of a one-hit clears all button. If you've got a number of faults and you just want to clear everything before you start working on the car, you can hit that and it will clear all the faults rather than going into each and every one. I just like to go into each and every one just to understand it. Also, let's have a look at the report function. So if I press report there you go, you've got report type, you've got pre-repair or post-repair, which is nice, so you choose which option. It comes up with Mercedes, it comes up with the engine number, which is a 230.467, and it's an SL350. And you can put in the year, you can type in the odometer reading, and if you press next, you put the customer's details in there, the address, telephone number, all that good stuff, and email. And if you press OK, there you go. It produces a lovely little report. So this is very much set up for a professional garage. You can have one by all means if you're a DIYer or you've got a couple of cars at home. But really, if you get one of these and you are using it at home, you're getting the same sort of kit that a garage will pay an awful lot more for, such as, and no disrespect, but people like Snap-on who charge a hell of a lot of money, yet this thing is doing all of that and more. As I said, it does pretty much every car on the planet, 10,000 different types of cars, to which it does over 100 different types of car brands. Amazing. So there we go, it's got the diagnostic tool that was used, and it gives you that full report, and you can then send that to the customer, print it out if you want to, and away you go. That's a lovely little thing. Right, so let's go back and let's press this time the clear DTC's button. So this is going to clear all of the codes that it can in one hit. So let's press yes. There's percentage there, 100%, only took 11 seconds. Switch ignition off, which it is, okay. Clearing fault memory, please wait 10 seconds. And the ones that are going to be left are the ones that are hardware fault and it can't clear. Switch ignition on, press OK. And here we go, clear fault memory completed. I'm not sure why it says hint at the top of the page, but nevertheless, they're completed. And if I go to the top of the list, we now only have 4. I had something like 9 before, and it's cleared all the faults that it can. The ones that remain, there's a hardware issue. You need to go in and change that component. I know that I have to go and change an O2 sensor, and that's why the engine control module, there's 4 faults, and it will stay there until you change that part. So far, so good. Really nice, really simple, quick in terms of the interface and usage and going between the screens. What I'm going to do now is show you a little bit more about how you can get some more information apart from the DTCs out of the individual control unit. So we've got the module information. So the module information is going to tell me about the device itself, where it was made, manufacturing, tell me the part number, which is great. It saves you having to physically remove that part. It will tell you what the part is. Now, if I go into read data stream, let's see what we can see on that. So Roadster soft top, interior lighting, interior mirror adjustment and dimming, interesting. Rear light sensors, rain light sensors, in-car temperature sensor, and power supply. So let's go to the first one there, which is the Roadster soft top, and let's select it and press OK. So there we go, it's giving me a little bit of information with the old bi-directional control, and it's telling me that the Vario roof close limit switch, right lug, is closed. So if you were to go through the roof and you had an issue, you could actually look at all the individual tiny micro switches, and it's quite a complex folding roof this on my Mercedes, and you should be able to see which, if you've got an issue of your roof switches, perhaps is giving you a problem. Let's have a look at the in-car temperature sensor. Let's press select all, press OK. Here we go, it's telling me that it's 68 degrees and it says that the in-car temperature sensor is running. So that's the little fan, and it sits just inside the overhead control module here. As I said, I had a problem with it and I fixed it. It's a little brushless fan, and the nice thing about it is, rather than me having to physically take the light down, have a look, I can tell it's working just by plugging in my Kingbolen K7. And if I wanted to, I can press the graph and it will give me a graph. So if I was to turn the engine on, get the car nice and warm, you'll find that this temperature will start to go up. If I put my hand there we go, look, as I've got my hand just over that sensor, look at the graph rise. Pretty accurate stuff. There's a good little bi-directional test just to show you. And if I take my hand away and maybe if I blow into it, see how it's dropping. And there she goes, and she's going back down again. That's a lovely thing. So there you go, I've gone up 5 degrees just by holding my hand, and now look, it's coming down to 69, back to where it was. Lovely. I'm going to have a look at the pneumatic system now, and let's see what sort of special functions we can do with that. We've got an actuation test, let's see. Unlock the trunk lids, open and close central locking, emergency opening by simulating the crash signal. Well, don't particularly want to do that, but if you look over here, appreciate it's a bit dark, if you have a look at my door lock there, it's up, and as I press F3, which is going to lock with pressure, F4 with vacuum, so the CSO is going to be unlocking and locking. So press F3, if you watch the button there on the door, there you go, nice little test, and F4, it's going to unlock it. So let's say you got a problem and you didn't know whether it was the physical lock in the door, whether it was a remote control, whether it was a button, you can press that and it overrides the whole system. And if that's working, then you can see that the door lock is going up and down, and it then allows you to pinpoint where the issue might be. So look at the multi-contour backrest. Do have a problem with my multi-contour backrest. So here we got F3 active, F4 not active. At the moment it's not active, but if I press F4, this screen here is a special function that allows you, if you've got the control module for your multi-contour backrest and you've replaced it, you then need to put the coding onto that control module. And this allows you to do that. So it says, is the coding to be transferred to the new control unit? You can say yes or no. And there you go, the coding has been carried out, and there it's taken the information from the old unit and it's as if I've put a new unit in there and it's carried the coding over. So back to this screen here, we've got the health report, system scan, system selection. The health report is what we're in just now. We can see all the codes, we can see the module information, we can see the special function. But now the system selection does exactly the same thing. It will find all of the control units on the car that the Kingbolen K7 can talk to. And again, you can see all the codes. The only thing it doesn't do is in the same way of the report that you can maybe produce for the customer. It's a small point, but nevertheless, when I look at the Autel Maxicom, that just has the two menus, automatic scan or a manual scan. And this one has the three. That's a little bit different. Don't know if it really benefits you in any way. And the system selection, as I mentioned, it's a manual selection. So it's where you choose if you wanted to go into an individual item. Let's say it was the ABS control module. You fix the problem. You don't want to have to wait 6 or 7 minutes to do the full scan. You can just go straight into it and find the issue, clear the codes if you need to, and away you go. And look, you can see here that it's got all of the same menus that it had done on that health report that we were first in. So let's go right back out now and have a look. By the way, look at all these cars that it's got. It's quite incredible. As I said, it's got over 10,000 cars that this Kingbolen K7 can talk to. It's over 100 different car makes, and you're going to have more and more Chinese cars They are the top of the game of manufacturing cars in the world at the moment. So it's lovely that it's actually got all of those. So let's keep going back and let's have a look at the reset functions now. I know that this has got 30 plus reset functions. When I compare it to the Ediag Plus, which is my individual Bluetooth one where you use your phone, there's a link below if you want to have a look, that only had 15. This has got over 30, and look at some of them here. Air fuel, ABS bleeding, AdBlue for your diesels. You got your airbag reset. That one is a definite must if you're trying to find issues where you might have a plug underneath the seat. You can have a look there and see which of the areas that you might have an issue with. BMS, battery monitoring system. Your brakes. Some cars you need to tell the car that you're working on the brakes as a safety precaution. Coolant, DPF, diesel particle filter, EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, ETS, that's your engine throttle, your electric throttle, your gearbox, and this one here, keys and immobilizer. This for me, I know it's not going to do it for Mercedes because you have to go to the dealer, but for other cars such as a Fiat and my little Honda, I might well be able to copy another car key because I've only got the one. And here you go, look, you can select. I don't think it will say Mercedes. Oh, it does say Mercedes-Benz there. Wow. Switch ignition on. Okay, well, let's try it and see. There's my VIN number. Wow. Smart key system, disable key, tailgate control system, remote control manual setup, oil reset, seats, steering angle sensor, your start stop, tires, windows. It's got a lot of reset functions. So plugging in the Maxicom 808, it uses a cable, obviously, rather than the Bluetooth module. So you're kind of obviously restricted to being in the car. With the K7 Kingbolen, once you've got that Bluetooth module in, you can stay near the car, but you can be outside the car. So if you've got something in the engine, you've got the ability to move around. So looking at the Maxicom here, very similar setup. You've got your diagnostic button there. You've got an update, which is going to be for all the different apps that you have, as well as different brands of car. So the difference here for the Maxicom is it gives you a diagnosis, hot functions, and vehicle profile. And that's quite different to the K7. So let me just touch on what those are. So diagnosis is going to do, as it is on the K7 Kingbolen, an automatic scan. And as you can see, it's only got one other option, which is the control unit. So as I mentioned on the K7, let's say you want to go into the ABS, then you go into the electronic stability program, and you can go straight to it, save a bit of time, because it can take about 6 or 7 minutes to do a full scan. For me, that makes much more sense, rather than a health report, system scan, and then a manual selection. It's a small little point I'm bringing up, because I haven't quite seen the benefit in doing that. I'm sure there is a very good reason, but I haven't yet to find it. If I go into control unit here, this is where the K7, I believe, is better than the Maxicom, because on the Maxicom it categorizes it into areas of the car. Let's use the ABS sensor as an example. You think to yourself, well, whereabouts is it? Is it the drive? Could be, because it's to do with the wheels. There's a Hall effect speed sensor, so it could be in that category, and you've only got 6. Is it chassis? Well, it might be, because it's part of the setup for the wheel hub. Is it air conditioning? No. Is it seats? No. Information communication? No. So it's between these two. So let's just try drive, for example. And again, you're then looking for where your ABS sensor is. Is it transmission? Maybe. Is it on the motor electronics? Could be. And there's a little bit of guesswork involved with doing that. So let's try the motor electronics. One of the other things I noticed is it does seem to be just a little bit more, I wouldn't say laggy, but it's not quite as responsive. It's not quite as quick. So you can see there's a little bit more of, let's just say, practicing that you'll need when you use the Maxicom, I think. It's not quite as obvious because you have to just understand which group of control units that you need to go into, and that's something that I've noticed on the Maxicom compared to the likes of your Launch or your Kingbolen diagnostics, such as the K7. So let's go into one of these and let's see if we can see a trouble code. Electronic stability program, let's go into that. So we got one here, DTR, it's a 7211 DTC, and CAN communication on the engine control module is faulty. What's interesting here is that I didn't have that on the K7. All right, well, let's go and see if we can erase that code. Erase codes. DTCs and speech data will be deleted. Little warning there. Let's press yes. Have you switched the ignition off and turned it back on after 10 seconds? Very similar in terms of what the K7 is. It says about 10 seconds. So, but it's just asking you to do it rather than actually telling you turn it off, wait, turn it on. It just says do it. So let's trust it and let's say what it says. Have switched off ignition, turn it back on after 10 seconds. So I'm going to do that now. So ignition is off. Wait 10 seconds. Okay, that's 10 seconds gone. Ignition's back on again. Let's press yes. No faults detected. So what I want to do now is go back. I'm going to go back into it now and see if that fault's gone. So electronic stability program. Now, if I had a full system scan, as in like the first one which you did on the Kingbolen, which was the health report, you'd see it drop down the list. But I'm going into the individual control units manually just to save a little bit of time. So let's go to trouble codes. No faults detected. So that's interesting, isn't it? There's a code there that got picked up on the Maxicom that it didn't do on the Kingbolen. One of the other things I'm going to point out is, if you remember on the Kingbolen, there was quite a fundamental list, including special functions that you could actually do. There's only 5. You got live data, trouble codes, ECU information, active tests, and control unit adaptations. If I go into active tests, so you just follow what it says on the screen here. Speed of the vehicle must be less than 10 kilometers an hour. You start the engine, then you go into the test sequence, and you operate the push button F3. Then the steering can be operated easily. Operate push button F4. The steering is difficult to operate. And there's your active test there. I'm not going to do that because you've got to be driving the car along, but nevertheless, it's got an active test. And it just goes to show that there are different menus between the Maxicom and the K7, but they're both as interesting and as in-depth as each other, I think. So there you go, just a little example of the differences in the menus. The information is there, you just have to kind of get used to using either one sort of brand or the other. But if you just think about it, they're not that difficult to use. I noticed that the launch and the Kingbolen diagnostics tend to follow that same theme. Maxicom, as I mentioned, will group the control units together. So you have to then go into either the chassis or the drive to find that specific unit. However, if you did a full system scan, then it would bring all of the faults, and then you'd be able to go into each one and go and clear them. You wouldn't have to go looking for the answer. It's only when you go into it as a manual setup that you need to think about where those particular control units are. So let's do another live test for you. Let's go into seats and doors, and let's go into the passenger seat. For me, it's the left-hand side, and see what active tests we can do. So we've got trouble codes, live data. Let's go into active tests. With the door switch, maybe I've had it before on a Mercedes where the contacts got a bit sort of sticky, and I couldn't work out whether it was the motors of the seat or whether it was the actual switch itself. And these active tests allow you to be able to work out exactly that, so that you can pinpoint what the issue might be. So we look at the seat now. If I look at the seat back, for example, rather than touching the door control button there, I'm going to control it through my Maxicom. So let's have a look at the forward back adjustment. It gives you a risk of injury. Now, this is very important because let's just say you had something behind the seat there. Maybe you got your hand there. When these motors move, there's a lot of force on there, and there's been some horrible stories of people actually getting things crushed. So just remember that, because it's going to perform a test now. Press OK. So we're going to move the seat forward now by pressing the screen. There she goes. I'm not doing anything. And it's not doing it on the switch, it's purely doing it through the Maxicom Diagnostic. And you better do this as well on the Kingbolen K7. And let's press the seat back. And away she goes. And this is why it's important that you make sure you've got nothing behind that seat when it performs this operation. And lastly, let's have a look at this other option here, which is hot functions. Now, the hot functions is going to be like the Kingbolen service or reset functions, it calls it, of which there was 31. Now, so here on the Maxicom, we actually only have 8. Oil reset, electric parking brake, steering angle sensor, tyre pressure monitoring system, your brake bleeding, suspension, ABS and SRS, and your aircon. So compared to your Kingbolen K7, you're only really getting a quarter of the special functions or reset functions. There we go. What do you think? They are both very capable diagnostic tools, that's for sure. Let's have a look at the similarities between the two. Both have Wi-Fi capability. They've got the 2.4 and the 5G Wi-Fi. They both have fully bi-directional control. They both do reset functions. They both have a 7-inch Android touchscreen, and they both have the internet using their own individual browsers, etc., which is really good, especially when you want to look up codes. They both have the option to be able to plug in external devices such as a endoscope. They both have the ability to do live data graphing, ECU coding, and doing a printout for your customers. They both claim to do pretty much every car on the planet. That's about 100 plus different car brands and over 10,000 different types of cars. Also, they both have a remote support feature where if you're trying to get into something and you're not too sure what you need to do, you can contact their support remotely and they'll guide you through it. Hardware wise, looking at the two, they are very, very similar. As I mentioned, they both have a 7-inch touchscreen. The difference though between the two, not a huge amount really. Both got that lovely rugged external case, especially working in a workshop, that's really good. But on the Maxicom, there's a little stand at the back, and that comes in handy, especially if you've got the cable. You can hook it onto the steering wheel, and then you can kind of work hands-free. On the Kingbolen K7, doesn't have a stand. It's not such of a big issue, but I think that's probably because it has a Bluetooth adapter, and it means that you can take it out the car, you can maybe work in the engine, and still look at the diagnostic screen whilst you're working on the engine. You can even actually go back into the garage, as long as you're not too far away from the car. As well as the Bluetooth module, the Kingbolen K7 has the ability to connect with a USB. It also has a camera on the back. That's something that the Autel Maxicom doesn't have. There isn't that camera. However, the Autel Maxicom has an external mini SD card slot there, and you've also got your USB slot as well. In terms of the processor speed, the Autel Maxicom actually claims to have a 1.8 gigahertz processor, and the Kingbolen is slightly less. Now, does that mean that one is much slower than the other? Not really. I actually found the Kingbolen was a little bit more slick between the menus, to be fair, so I don't think that really has too much of a factor. Both units do service resets, and this is where we start to see a little bit of difference. The Autel Maxicom actually does say it does about 25 plus different service resets, but when I noticed when I went into my Mercedes, they actually only came up with 8. On the Kingbolen K7, there was about 30. So actually that was only a quarter of the amount. And I think that depends on the type of car that you're going to have. They both do anti-lock brake systems, other things like your steering angle sensor, your battery monitoring system. They will both do coding of new injectors. They will both look at your steering angle sensor or your transmission control module or your electronic throttle reset. They do all of that and are very, very similar. Brake bleeding, etc. So I think we're pretty much like for like there. What I did notice though is the menus on the K7, there seemed to be a little bit more. There was more to go into. It gave you a little bit more bang for your buck. Now let's get on to the key thing here. Price. The price of the Autel Maxicom when I bought this was £430 on a certain online shopping channel. I went for the one with the cable simply because it was £70 cheaper. And that's a key point. I thought to myself, I'd rather spend £70 on, say, a new tyre or something else for the garage than perhaps the convenience of having the Bluetooth adapter. Having said that, now that I've had a go with this setup with the Bluetooth adapter, it actually is really, really convenient. But nevertheless, it was the reason why I didn't buy the Maxicom, because if I bought the Maxicom with that Bluetooth adapter, that version, that setup, that was £500. The Kingbolen K7 right now is only £327. And if you have a look at my description, then maybe I'm negotiating with Kingbolen a little special discounts for a limited time only. So in terms of which unit I would choose, it's down to 3 key things right now and why I would choose it. First one is talking about the warranty. Autel Maxicom, you get 1 year software updates for all your cars and you get a year's warranty. Kingbolen K7, you get 3 years software updates for all your cars and a 5-year warranty on it. Second thing is the functionality. The Kingbolen K7 actually did tip the balance and it did more, and it has slightly more features, I believe, than the Autel Maxicom. The third thing is the price. This is the cable setup for the Maxicom. If I went with the Bluetooth version, that would cost me £500. The Kingbolen K7 is £327 with the Bluetooth module. So that for me are the three key things why, if I had to make a choice right now and I was to buy one of these, I would go with the Kingbolen K7. You know, there's loads of diagnostic tools out there, and I appreciate it gets harder and harder because more and more are coming on the market. And this Kingbolen is a real contender, by the way, for what it does. But don't worry if it's a little bit outside your budget, because I've actually got some more diagnostic tools which are a little bit cheaper for you. If you want a bit of a budget, this one here just works on your mobile phone. It still does all of the cars on the planet. 10,000 cars and over 100 different car brands, just like the Kingbolen K7. But instead of having a device which you use in your hand, you just use your mobile phone, and it uses a little Bluetooth dongle, a little bit like that, in fact almost that sort of size. Lovely and convenient. Also, I've got a smaller unit here which will give you the codes that you can understand then what the issue is with your car, and that's the OBD2 enhanced code scanner. And coming up, we got the S Smart Scan tool, also by Kingbolen as well. If you're thinking about getting a diagnostic tool, it's a really good idea. Cars are getting so more sophisticated. They're all run by computers and control units now. Back in the day, you very, very rarely had to worry too much about it. Pre-1996 cars, it was a lot more basic with the old carburetors, etc. and all the rest. But as things are getting more sophisticated with sensors and they all talk to one another, having a diagnostic tool is an absolute must. If you're into your cars, or even if you're just a hobbyist. Let's say you've got a neighbour or friend or family and you want to try and help them. Just to give you an idea, if you go to a garage and get your car diagnosed, it's going to cost you about 60 to 80 pounds. For a couple of diagnostics, you could probably buy a unit. In fact, I know you can buy some of the cheaper units for the same cost of one diagnostic, and then you've got it for your life. You can then go and do all the different cars that you're going to get. If you change your car, let's say you've got a BMW and then you go with a Ford, you've got that option. You can get the software dependent on the unit, you can download it, and then you can go and look at other vehicles as well. You're not just tied in to a control unit that does one brand of car. Appreciate you watching. I really hope this helps you. My name's Groovon. Thanks for getting to the end of the video. Have a think about subscribing and giving me the old bell icon, because there's a playlist at the end just on diagnostics to give you a little helping hand. I'll see you on the next one.